It's almost been 1 year since I've graduated from college, and let me be the first to tell you, a lot of things change once you graduate. Now, I've only been out of school for 9 months, and I'm already starting to see a lot of differences that I didn't really even think about while I was going to school. So this week, we're going to talk about 8 things that change after college. Now, the first thing that's going to change when you graduate from college is that you owe money for college, no matter if you have a job or not. So those loans or those student loans that you were taking, it's time to start repaying them. Now, typically they have a grace period of about 6 months. I think mine were 6 months. I know for a period there between 2020 and 2025, the student loan repayment was deferred due to COVID, but I think they reintroduced that back in 2025, so mine at least were deferred for 6 months. So if you graduate in May, that means it's time to start repaying them in November. Now, I talked previously about how you were going to owe money no matter what, so if you want to learn more about student loans and education and just the expenses of college, go check that video out. But some of these loans are even accruing interest before you graduate college. And I believe those are called the unsubsidized loans if you're taking from a federal loan. But either way, they're going to start coming at you for their money. So whether you have a job or not, you have to be prepared to start making these repayments because let me tell you, the minimum payment is still a decent amount of money. Definitely affordable, but you want to be paying more than your minimum payment or else you're really not going to be making any ground on these loans. So I think that's the first thing that you really got to start thinking about when you graduate school. I know that can be stressful, but they're going to come for their money whether you like it or not. Now, the second thing that really changes when you graduate school is that you're not going to have any of the resources that you had while you were in school. And let me talk about that a little bit more. So one thing that I wish I did, and I started doing this during my graduate school phase, was downloading all of the PowerPoints, all of the resources, everything that was attached. So my school used Canvas. So anything that was attached to the course in Canvas, I started downloading in graduate school, and I wish I was doing that in undergrad as well. Because about 6 to 12 months after you graduate, the school is actually going to delete your student email. So that means anything you have in your email that's saved, anything downloaded, anything in your Google Docs, Sheets, any of that stuff, or whatever your school account is tied to is going to be deleted as well. So make sure you download all that stuff because I really wish I did. Because when you graduate, you're going to want to look back on it, or at least refer to it at some point, most likely. Now, the third thing that changes might be actually one of the most important things, and that's going to be that you're going to grow apart from some of the friends that you made in college. And that's because most of the people that go to college are coming from another area of the country or different region, and they're going to be moving back home. So most likely the friends that you make in college are going to move away and you're going to lose touch. And that could also mean that some old friends are going to re-enter your life. Like if you go back to your hometown, you're going to become friends again with the people who are in that area. I think a lot of things that we don't consider about friendship is that proximity and convenience is a big factor. I know that sounds awful that in order to be friends with somebody, you have to be close to them and it has to be convenient for you, but that's just the truth. That's how natural friendships form and continue to build is just by being close to somebody without even having to try. Now, I'm not saying that you're going to lose all of your friends, but you're going to have to put in some effort to continue talking to them. Or maybe you're just not going to see them again ever in your life, and that's just the truth of it. So make sure you stay in close with your friends. Make sure you reach out. It's the only way you're going to stay connected. The fourth thing that's going to change is your priorities. When you graduate from school, everything changes. It's time to enter real life. When you're at school, it can feel kind of like a constant party and that you can drink and you can do all these things and hang out with friends whenever you want because you have class at 10 a.m. the next day or you don't have class at all on Fridays. But once you have a job, the things in your life start to become more serious. Now you probably have an income. You're probably going to take on bills. You're going to have to live somewhere. You're going to have to start paying for your car if you weren't already. Not to mention you're going to have a much more structured routine life. Most jobs, typically the 9 to 5 or whatever that 8 hours is for you, it's going to be Monday through Friday. So now you're not going to be able to just do whatever you want on a Tuesday night because you have to be up and at work at 9 a.m. the next morning, or maybe even earlier depending on where you work. So in that way, your priorities are going to take a big shift. Not only that, but you're probably going to start thinking about your finances more. You're going to think about everything else in life that needs to be structured. Most likely at school, you probably lived on your own in some capacity, maybe with roommates or whatever it is, you were away from your parents. So now you're going to have to continue to build those skills of cooking, cleaning, taking care of yourself. All of those things begin to become more important in your life. And what you'll probably see is the friends that you make or the friends that you come out with, their priorities aren't always going to align with yours. Maybe you move on to the more important things faster, and some of your friends are still tied on the old, partying, drinking, stuff like that, and are okay going to work hungover every day. So in that way, your friends might also have different priorities. Things are going to fall into line at different times for everybody. I'm sure we all know our friends who don't really have everything figured out. Not that that's a bad thing, but they're just on a different timeline than you are. So I think priorities are a big thing that changes when you go to college or when you graduate college. Now, the fifth thing that's going to change, maybe a little bit more minor, and certainly not for everybody, is that you're not going to have any more summers off. You're not going to have any more winter breaks. If you want to take a vacation, you're going to have to use PTO like everybody else. These built-in breaks throughout your year, they're gone. And I haven't experienced this yet because, like I said, I graduated last year, so I haven't even worked through a summer. Well, I've had summer jobs, but I haven't worked through summer with my full-time job yet, and I think it'll definitely be a big shift for me. Now, this isn't going to apply to everybody. School teachers, obviously, you're going to have your summers off, but to us regular folks, no more summers, no more winter break. I just went through that with Christmas and New Year's and those holidays, and that's just life now. But if you're a school teacher, obviously, props to you. You're going to have summers off. A little bit more minor, but definitely something to think about. You go through life from age 6 to age 22, always having summers off, always having winter breaks. It's just how our school systems function. So when you enter the real world and that's no longer a thing, it's certainly different. Now, the sixth thing that's going to change is that life is going to get really busy for you. When you have a full-time job, that is 40 hours a week. And most likely you're going to have a commute. So let's say you have a 30-minute commute to your 8 to 5, or your 9 to 5. That's another hour on top of the 8 hours you're working, just from commuting. And not to mention, after you put in the full 8 hours, an hour of driving, you're going to come home probably feeling pretty exhausted and not wanting to do anything. Not to mention, you're going to have to go to bed early because guess what? You have to get up for work tomorrow. So no more having 2 classes on Tuesday, 3 classes on Wednesday, and then, Fridays off. It's the same schedule every day, and you're going to be tired, you're going to be exhausted, and you're going to feel like you have no time for anything. Not to mention, if you don't do anything on the week, that means you only have 2 days, Saturday and Sunday, and also I guess Friday afternoon, to do whatever you want. And that is going to feel like not enough time, I promise. So not to be all doom and gloom, but a full-time job takes time, and it's very hard to be motivated outside of that to do anything else productive. So just something to be aware of. Obviously, that's a total mentality that somebody has to have, but you can certainly do things productive outside of your job. You can certainly live your life amazingly outside of your job, but there are going to be weeks when you feel tired and like you don't want to do anything, but you have to anyway. So just something to think about. Now, number 7, this is probably one of the good things. I know a lot of the things I'm talking about are negative, things that don't sound great, but one of the best things that's going to change when you're out of college is that you're actually going to get paid. And most likely, you're going to get paid for things that you were doing for free in college. I know specifically my degree required me to do like an internship in my field, and that was completely unpaid. So perhaps the best thing that changes when you graduate from school is that you're going to get paid. Now, you need to be careful though, because now that you're getting paid, and you're probably getting paid a pretty decent amount of money, you need to be careful with lifestyle inflation. And what this is basically now that you're getting paid more, you're going to start spending more. When in reality, what you should be doing is not increasing your spending, but increasing your saving now that you have this money, or using that money to pay off school as fast as you can. A lot of people will fall into the trap of buying a new car, upgrading their living situation like an apartment, or moving into a house too early. And these are going to increase what you have to spend before you increase your saving. So it really is a bad trap to fall in. But again, great that you're getting paid for probably something that you had to do for free throughout school anyway. Now, the final thing that I want to talk about that changes when you graduate college is you're going to lose a lot of your other free resources. And what I mean by free resources this time is things like the gym, or access to certain databases that your school pays for, or through the school library. You're going to lose access to these things because they're benefits that the college or university are probably paying for. They're built into your fees for tuition. And now that you're not a student, you can't use the free gym, even though technically I guess it's not free then because you're paying like a student living fee. But either way, it's like a free on top of what you're paying for. And same thing with like research or databases or certain websites. Maybe your school has free subscriptions to like a newsletter or certain products like Adobe or Microsoft products that you now have to pay on your own. Not the end of the world here, but certainly something to think about. While you're in school, use those free resources, go to the gym, read research articles, maximize whatever subscriptions that they're giving to you through your tuition, because once you don't have them anymore, they're gone, and you're going to have to shell out your own money to pay for them. So just another thing to think about. But that's the list for today. I'm sure there's a ton of other things that change. I've only been out of school for 9 months, but these are the 8 things that really came to my mind first. If you've been out of school for a while, let me know what your experience is like. How has things changed for you? I'd love to hear anybody else's opinions. But that's it for this week. There's new videos every Wednesday, so make sure you look back next week for another video. Catch you guys next week.